Hey guys, this is just a heads up for anyone who wants to or is thinking about buying an old style lathe. This is a 9-inch South Bend, but there's lots of Australian models that the guys love, like the Hercuses, I think the Atlases as well. But the things you need to know, or you should definitely consider before you buy one of these things and rock up to someone's house that you're going to buy it off, these things you should really take into consideration before you say yes. So I'm just going to go through some of the things that you should definitely check, because you could be buying a dud or you're looking at extra costs which you didn't factor in when you bought it. So we'll start from the overarm assembly, and that's your belts. So you've obviously got your tensioner here. So that works on a over 90 degree lock, so because it goes past 90 degrees creates a lock, but you can tension that with the nuts down the back there. You can change the tension there, or you can change your tension down in underneath from the motor. It usually works out pretty good if you get the same belts, but if you look here, how are you meant to change the belt? You can't take this out, can't take that out, the belt's just stuck. So to change the belt, you literally have to take apart your headstock, or you pay an extra 120 bucks ish for the split belting, which is awesome. There's nothing wrong with the split belting. It's just an added cost. So if your belt when you rock up is completely shagged, mine's brand new, I ended up pulling this apart, so that was easy for me. Just consider that cost, that if you're not going to spend the time pulling apart the headstock, or you're not too confident about doing it, that's an extra 100 bucks. So probably try and swindle the dude down an extra 100 bucks if the belts need replacing. So there's one belt there, one belt in here. Everything's over the top of the lathe, whereas some are down in underneath. So don't forget to have a look at that one. The other thing that you really need to look into, and you can't see because these covers are in the way, you can just see the teeth in up the back there, and that's the back gear assembly, which is what this lever does. Works on a cam. You can see how that's the cam there. Yep. So the way that works is you've got, let's take that tension out, that little pin in there. As soon as you take that pin out, now this can spin freely. See how that ball gear isn't moving now? As soon as I put him back in, shot. There we go. Now it all spins together, and what do you know, the chuck moves. So the idea behind that is, if you want to go really, really slow, which is awesome on these belt-driven lathes, because the motor is still putting out the same amount of power, and the chuck's still got everything through the belts. It's just moving incredibly slow because it's geared down ridiculously. So the back gears are a fantastic thing, especially for doing really fine thread cutting if you want to move really slowly. But if any of those teeth are missing, and you really should check, your back gears are potentially stuffed. So you've lost your ability to move or use this in really low speeds. So once you take that pin out, this now moves freely, and instead of it being driven from the top belt through to this belt and then direct driving into the chuck, it now spins from top belt to this belt, to the pulley, to this gear, to that gear, to that gear, to that gear, through the chuck. So if those are out, she ain't gonna move. How the gears get stuffed is either people aren't meshing it properly, so you actually have to rotate your handle as well as move this to align everything. If you leave those back gears in without taking out your plunger and freeing up your pulley here, you've created a lock, a complete lock of the headstock. So I don't know if there's an actual safety switch in there or anything like that. I highly doubt it. But if you turn that on, the entire thing is locked. So something will give, usually the belt, something will spin. But you definitely need to take that plunger out, for sure. And remember to put it back in afterwards. It's not too bad. You'll just realise that nothing's working. What else can I say? Find out whether it's a plain bearing or a tapered roller bearing, because plain bearings tend to wear out faster. You can try and test how much wear is inside the plain bearing. You can tension them down by these tensioner bolts here, which will clamp down even more, but you clamp down too much and then you're actually riding the shaft on the bare metal as opposed to allowing enough for the oil and the wicks in there to do their job. So you can only tension it so much. But you can usually push it from side to side, because that's obviously where the wear is going to be when you're turning inwards or pushing directly. Then you'll get some wear. You can adjust how much wear in and out via here. You just tighten that up a little bit further and that'll take up all that slack. But for your in and out, you can't do anything about that. Your bearings inside will wear. On a tapered roller bearing, less wear. What else can I say? Always check your gears for any broken teeth. That's a given. It's very hard to do that with your quick change gearbox. The other big thing is to look into your bed wear. You can do that by just rubbing your finger along. You can just about see it. See that lip just there? That's wear. And it's not too bad with these, because if you look where everything is mounted, and that's the advantage of V-beds, is that your headstock here is mounted on that V-way and that flat. Your tailstock is mounted on the exact same V and the exact same flat. That V, camera, and that flat. So they're working on the exact same V and flat. Your saddle, however, is on a different V. Do you see? It's on your front V and it's on your rear V. So this moves independently on different ways compared to your tailstock and your headstock. The reason behind that is because you want your tailstock and your headstock to be aligned as perfectly as they can. So they're the things that aren't going to wear the most. I mean, a headstock ain't going to move at all. It's stuck there. It's not moving anywhere. Your tailstock only moves when you're doing long pieces or when you're drilling and things like that. So that rarely moves that much. However, your saddle is always going to wear the most, and always right up close where it's doing the most amount of work. Back and forward here, back and forward here. Not so much way up the back here. So you'll see that the wear is far less up here than what it is way down here. Those are things to consider, because that will actually create a taper that you can't adjust too much. If you're doing a short piece, not a big deal, because you'll get your center height and it won't change much. If you're doing a long piece, way out to here, your center height will change from there to there a fair bit. So you'll get dodgy finishes, it won't look the best. And if your tailstock is really worn, especially in underneath, your center height will drop and you'll start cutting tapers. You can't look in here, but you can definitely listen to each individual gear. So select each individual one and listen for any sort of binding or any sort of crunching noises, because that's not the best. It's really hard to look into those unless you take it off, turn it over and have a look yourself. That's the best way to do it, but it's not a quick job. It takes a little bit. You can just see in underneath, but you're only seeing, a quarter of the gears that are in there. The other thing is that if you notice, the lead screw looks brand new. It's fantastic. For a very old machine, it's, not worn at all. Why would you think that when it's doing a lot of supposedly thread cutting? Well, that's because your half nuts are the sacrificial nuts. So your half nuts are potentially shagged. All that means is that you can use those half nuts as long as you can still cut a thread without having to worry too much about your backlash. All you're going to get is more backlash the more that these wear out. But these are original half nuts and they work just fine for me. So yeah, definitely check your longitudinal and horizontal feed. So you can do that without even turning on the machine. If, I don't know, he's got a 3-phase motor and you only have 240 power at home. So you do that. I can't do it with one hand. Dang it. Well, all you do is you pull out your lever and you use 2 hands. There we go. Now that one's locked and I can't move it, but I can move that one. So that tells you that that is now your crossfeed, and it works. Go up to the top one. Now that's locked, and that still moves, which tells me that's my longitudinal feed. Things to consider. That's just about it, guys.